dividing whole numbers, example 1. Solve for the following, 20 divided by 4. So let's go ahead and just show what 20 could look like if we were to represent them as dots. So now we have 20 dots. So what we're really asking is 20 divided by 4. So we're to how many 4s, like groups of 4, are in 20 in a way, right? So that's another way to think about them. So anytime we see 4, let's just go ahead and do something like that. So that's 2, 3, 4, well, and that's the 5th one, right? It might look different, but what we're saying is 20 divided by 4 is equal to, right, is equal to 5. So how many 4s are in 20? Well, that would be 5. So that's just one way to kind of visualize what we're talking about here. Now, another way to show, right, division can be like this. We can go 20 divided by 4, right? That's another way to indicate it, because 20 divided by 4, right, it still would come up as 5, but it's just a different way to show. Another way you can also see it is if, right, like we have like a division bar. So we have 20 inside, and then we'd have the 4 on the outside. So, right, this way, or this way are all acceptable ways to show division. Now let's go ahead and do the next example. So example 2, a vehicle got 378 miles on 14 gallons. So how many miles per gallon did the vehicle get? So we're asking, right, how many, right, groups of essentially 14 are in 378. So we can go like this. So let's go ahead and do division like this. So now 14 can go into 378 how many times? So that's what we're asking. So 14, if we look at this 3, well, 14 can't go into 3 at all, right? 3 is much smaller. So let's go ahead and look at the first two numbers. So 14 can go into 37 because 37 is much larger. So let's go ahead, and we know 14 times 2, right, is equal to 28. So 14 can go into 37 2 times. So we would indicate that by putting 28 below, and then we're going to go ahead and subtract, but we need to borrow. So we have 17 minus 8, so that would be 9, and then that would just be 0. So we have a 9, right, remaining. So now 14, right, is larger than 9, so that's a good thing. So we know we don't need to increase this anymore. But then our next step would be then to move on and bring down that 8. Now 14 can go into 98 how many times? Well, notice that this is, right, if that's 28, so we can at least go into it at least, right, about 6 times, because 30 times 3 would be 90, and then 2 times 3 would be 6. So let's go ahead and do that. So 14 times 6, 4 times 6, right, is 24. Put the 4 below, carry the 2. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 2. Well, that would be 8. Now let's go ahead and look to see if we can do it another time. 14 times 7. Right, we could either just go 14 plus 84, or we can just go ahead and multiply again. 4 times 7, 28, carry the 2. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9. And look at that. 14 can go into 98 7 times. We put the 7 above the 8, right? And we get 27. So how many miles per gallon did the vehicle get? Well, it got 27, right? Because we asked how many essentially, right, 378 being divided by 14, like how many 14s are there? Well, there's 27. So for every gallon, it got, right, it got 27 miles, which is how we can get up to 378. And so a way to track, if we did this correct, right, is we would do the opposite of division, which would be, right, multiplication. And then we can go ahead and multiply this. And this is the way we can check your answer, right? Is you want to make sure you can multiply these numbers to get then that number, right? So we want to make sure we can get 378. So you can go ahead and do that on your own, but that is always a way you can check your answers. So let's go ahead and look at the last example. So example 3, a company has an app for the customer and wants to see the average number of hours spent on the app in a given month per customer. So if the total hours spent on the app in a month was 325,500 hours and there was 1,500 customers, what was the average hours spent on the app per customer that month? So we're looking at this and we're going to go ahead and divide it by that number. Right, so we can indicate it like this. Or another way, right, and the way we're going to start to do this problem is we're going to go ahead and put the larger number inside and then go and look at this 1,500 and see how many times we can go into that number, right, the larger number. So 1,500 is a very large number. Well, it definitely can't go into 3. And it can't go into 32, and it can't go into 325, right? It's still even less than 325. But it can go into, right, if we would just look at the first 4 numbers, 3,255. So 1,500 can go into 3,255 2 times, because 1,500 times 2 is equal to 3,000. So let's go ahead and put that 2 above that second 5 right here, right? And we'll put this below. Now, if you need to go ahead and do that, 1,500 times 2 to double check, go ahead and do that. You can always pause the video. Now, 5 minus 0, well, that's 5. 5 minus 0, that's 5. 2 minus 0, we're not taking anything away, so we'll just leave it as 2. 3 minus 3, well, that would be 0. So we just have 255. So the next step would be, we're going to go ahead and bring down that 0. Now we have 2,550, which is, right, it's less than the 3,000, so it can only go into it 1 time. So 1,500 times 1 is, right, 1,500. We subtract 0, 5, 0, and we get 1. And then our last step is to bring down that 0. So now we have 10,500. So we're asking how many times it can go into that, right? So let's go ahead and do this on the side. So let's go ahead and put 7. Let's see how many. 0 times 7, 0. 0 times 7, 0. 7 times 5 is 35. Carry the 3. 7 times 1 is 7 plus 3. And that's 10. And that was just a guess, right? I was actually thinking it was going to be maybe even larger, like, than the 7. But it is 7. So if we go put that there, we put this on the bottom, and we subtract, we get 0, right? Because 1,500 times 7 is equal to this number, which is why we subtract, and we get 0. So we don't have a remainder, so we know we're done. And so the average amount of hours spent on the app that month per customer is 217. Now, you could be thinking this is a really large number, but you can also think maybe that this is a tool in someone's job, right? This could have been anything to help them be successful in their job. So that would make a lot more sense there.